What happened in 2020, I would characterize as a bifurcation of Main Street and Wall Street. We had hyperinflation in financial assets. I am struggling with the time-honored question, what is money? And if I told you every asset that you hold in Canada is going to be seized from you within 6 months,
that could happen.
You would think about how you're going to get your money out of Canada. What's going on with Bitcoin is a bunch of people with the same ideology. We just all like to keep our money.
It's not exactly that you want to keep your money. It's you want to keep the fruits of your labor and you want to keep your reputation. And you want to do that over the longest amount of time possible with the least amount of parasitism and corruption manageable.
Jordan Peterson just published an interview with Michael Saylor to his nearly 9 million subscribers. And what followed was a deeply layered and philosophical discussion about money, energy, time, and civilization. From the broken incentives of fiat to the incorruptible architecture of Bitcoin as a new moral foundation for the digital age. Today, we're going to look at a few choice clips from this incredible and important interview and discuss its implications on Peterson, his massive audience, and the whole world. To start, I want to highly recommend going back and watching the full interview that's available on YouTube. I'll leave a link in the description below. Saylor goes into rich detail about his unique backstory and the intellectual path that led him from building enterprise software to rethinking the nature of value itself. In the discussion, they cover much more than just Bitcoin. It's about time, energy, morality, and the search for something incorruptible in a world that feels increasingly unstable. As is true with myself, Saylor went down the Bitcoin rabbit hole during the COVID lockdowns in 2020. And as he discusses with Peterson in depth, the pandemic didn't break the economy like many thought it might, but it did reveal who the system is built to serve. This first clip captures that bifurcation, the decoupling of Main Street and Wall Street, the moment when many, including myself and Michael Saylor, began to realize something was fundamentally broken.
COVID lockdown takes place. There's a massive panic. All of these stocks crash because we're shutting down the world for the next 2 years. Of course they should crash. And the administration looks at it, and the hue and cry comes from the mainstream media and from the leaders in business and from the politicians, lower the interest rates. So Jerome Powell turns around and lowers the interest rates and lowers the interest rates, and pretty soon we've got interest rates going from 250 basis points, like overnight rates, to zero. What happens to the stock market? And this is the most perverse thing imaginable. By the summer of 2020, all of the stocks have recovered. We had a crisis, but we solved it by taking the interest rate to zero. We printed money. And the stocks recover. Amazon's recovered, Apple's recovered, Disney is trading higher. People are basically taking Disney up to double, and they're trading it based upon forward expectations of Disney streaming video revenue in year 2024. And I'm watching this. And this was what happened in 2020, I would characterize as a bifurcation of Main Street and Wall Street. What you saw was Main Street was destroyed by these policies, right? Main Street got shut down. The private manufacturer, the person that works with their hands, the guy that shows up, the small business, the mid-sized business. This is the Trump constituency, by the way. These people get destroyed. And they're wiped out. Like, okay, it's illegal for you to open your gym. You're going to jail if you go to work, okay? Yeah. And then Wall Street was, you got guys running $5 billion equity investment funds living in New York and the Hamptons. They had the best year of their life, Jordan. 2020 was the best year in 30 years for these investors. They're making, all you had to do was be holding the stocks or playing the market. When interest rates go to zero, the P to E of any company that generates cash it doubles, it triples. The cap rates on real estate doubled. So the perverse irony is you own a building, no one's in it, the value of the building doubles in 4 weeks. You're owning a company, all the customers are being bankrupted, the value of the company doubles. So what happened was, the government printed money. We had hyperinflation, not in consumer products, not in producer products. We had hyperinflation in financial assets. That hyperinflation meant that the stock market rallied, real estate rallied. If you owned a portfolio of real estate or portfolio of stock, you got rich. And the thought that I had, which is, this investment manager sitting on his floaty at his house in the Hamptons is having the best year of his life, and I'm having the worst year of my life. He's not working at all. He's literally not working at all. He's watching television, getting rich, taking high fives. And I'm watching all these people I care about wiped out, destroyed, jailed, abused, bankrupted, fired, stripped of all hope. And then I have this $500 million asset and the interest rates go to zero. And Jerome Powell goes on television and he gives a speech. And these are his words. We've taken interest rates to zero. I'm not even thinking about raising interest rates to the year 2024.
The distortion wasn't subtle. It was blinding. While the real economy suffocated, the paper economy inflated at levels never seen before. And this wasn't just a bad policy decision. It was a clarifying moment, one that forced people to ask the most basic, but also the most dangerous and loaded question in modern finance. What is money? For Saylor, the question wasn't academic. He had $500 million on the line. He could no longer trust the traditional stores of value. So he started looking deeper. What asset can store economic energy across time without rotting? That search led him to a revelation. And for many of us, it's the same turning point.
So I was there and I thought, well, what can you buy? Can I buy real estate? And the answer is real estate just doubled in value over a few weeks because Jerome jacked the price of interest to zero. So that's not good. Can I buy a portfolio of stocks? They just went to an all-time high because we jacked the interest rate to zero. That's no good. Can I buy a portfolio of collectible art? Oh yeah, good luck with, like, how do I find $500 million of Picassos and Monets attractively priced? You're looking at a guy after 30 years in business and an engineering education, reasonably educated, but not a classically trained economist, not an Austrian economist. I am struggling with the time-honored question, what is money? I need a liquid, fungible asset which will store my economic energy for an indefinite period of time. That is, and so what is money? I'm looking for money. And eventually I get to gold. And I'm thinking, should I buy $500 million of gold? And my attorney, he looks at me and goes, Mike, I remember when gold was $800 an ounce back in the 70s or the 80s, and then it went nowhere for 20 years, and you should be careful about that. And it might not, it's dead money. So I'm watching us strip the world back to the Stone Age, a devolution. And I'm staring over my pool, and I look at Eric, and I say, Eric, tell me about that Bitcoin thing again. And Eric was a crypto entrepreneur, and he had been investing in digital assets and crypto. And I had dismissed him 2 years earlier in 2018. I was like, oh, that's probably just a scam coin. That's going to collapse. But everybody finds this. If I tell you got 6 months to live, you would go looking for a cure. And if I told you every asset that you hold in Canada is going to be seized from you within 6 months,
That could happen.
you would think about how you're going to get your money out of Canada.
Yeah, we already thought about that.
And the point is, you didn't think about it for the 20 years of your career when it just wasn't the priority.
Yeah.
And then when you're faced with a crisis, a challenge, you start thinking. So I said, Eric, tell me about that Bitcoin thing again.
It's almost always some kind of crisis that sparks this question, whether it's capital flight, asset seizure, or the slow decay of inflation. The trigger doesn't matter as much, but the realization does. We tend not to think about money until it fails, and that's in many ways by design. But when it does fail, when you finally ask what is money, you begin to see why Bitcoin isn't optional and why it's inevitable. And that's exactly why Swan Private exists, to help serious investors navigate this exact moment. If you're a high net worth individual or managing family assets, Swan Private gives you direct access to Bitcoin strategists, custody solutions, and the infrastructure to convert fiat risk into Bitcoin security. Because once you finally understand what money is, you want a partner who gets it too. Visit swan.com/private to learn more. And so what is it about Bitcoin that makes it so transformational? This next clip gets to the heart of it, and it's one of the most powerful explanations you'll hear. As Saylor lays out as only he can, Bitcoin isn't just a database. It's a decentralized, fault-tolerant, incorruptible organism. A protocol running simultaneously across tens of thousands of machines, owned by no one, yet defended by everyone. It's a monetary virus, yes, but it's also a moral one.
Satoshi has to create a perfect monetary network, and you got to create it with imperfect components. The imperfect components are the people, the governments, the actors, the computers. They're going to fail. What happens if the power goes out? What happens if that gets hacked? The answer is I create a machine that's running the protocol. This one's running the protocol. This one's running the protocol. They're all running at the same time. They're all hashing in order to guess the answer that's required to build the next block. 1 out of 1,000,000 of these things will win. The entire thing is a fault-tolerant, shared nothing, mission-critical, nuclear-hardened system because what is it? It's a virus, right? It's an internet virus, a monetary virus, an ideological virus, and everyone that chooses to run the node is feeding the network, participating in the network. All of the miners are defending the network. But once you understand it like that, then you realize that what's going on with Bitcoin is a bunch of people with the same ideology. We just all like to keep our money. Running a protocol, have instantiated that protocol in software that runs on mobile phones, that runs on computers.
We should also say, it's not exactly that you want to keep your money. It's you want to keep the fruits of your labor and you want to keep your reputation. And you want to do that over the longest amount of time possible with the least amount of parasitism and corruption manageable. And because when you say you want to keep your money, it's got that kind of evil capitalist ring to it. If you spent your entire lifetime building up a storehouse of value, and you did that in a way that also brought prosperity to other people, it's only natural justice of the sort that keeps hardworking people working and everything abundant in order to not allow people like that to be parasitized and taken out.
I really feel like Peterson gets it here. It's not about hoarding money. It's about protecting the fruits of your labor. It's about fairness, about shielding honest work from parasitic decay. Bitcoin is not just harder money. It's higher ground. It's a monetary system rooted in rules, not rulers. It's a foundation for civilization that doesn't ask for permission, doesn't degrade over time, and doesn't care who you are. Only that you play by the rules. And so if you want to connect with others on this same journey, this transformation in how we see money and values, there are 2 must-attend events this year. BTC Prague is coming up in a little over a week and is Europe's premier Bitcoin-only conference, bringing together thinkers, builders, and leaders from across the globe. Visit btcprague.com for details and use promo code SWAN for 10% off tickets before they're all gone. And back in the US, in late September, BTC in DC is bringing Bitcoiners to the heart of Washington to help shape policy and signal strength. Head to btcindc.com and use promo code SWAN for 10% off tickets. And finally, a quick shout out to Mara, the world's largest publicly traded Bitcoin miner, for supporting this show and for helping make Bitcoin the world's most decentralized and secure monetary network. So in closing, Peterson and his huge audience just got an intellectual masterclass on Bitcoin. Not only is the hardest money in the world, but also the fairest. It gives us a way to store value, protect time, and transmit energy across generations, without asking permission, without fearing theft, and without relying on broken and corrupt systems. That's why this idea is catching fire and going mainstream in this post-COVID era. It's why the smartest and most influential people are asking the oldest questions. And it's why you're here watching this channel. Because once you really see the truth, there's no going back. So when did you start asking the question, what is money? Share your Bitcoin journey in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it. Like this video, share it with a friend. And if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching. And remember, TikTok next block.